Edie and recording in progress. Okay, I'll start over. Hi, I'm Edie, and I'm so thrilled to be here and want to thank Prym for inviting me to share some tips with you. When I was talking to Erica at Prym about what am I going to do? I'm going to show you how to use a granny square or whatever. I thought it would be really awesome for me to just tell you some things that I wish all beginners knew. So I'm not necessarily going to be showing you how to do a particular stitch, although there will be some of that. What I will be doing is showing you okay, here's some things you really need to know that you may have missed in learning, whether you're teaching yourself or whether somebody else has taught you or you're looking at YouTube or whatever. This is not everything I know. Okay, we have 1 hour, we have a lot of you. I teach a lot of classes to a lot of different levels, both knitting and crochet. So I am not telling you everything I know. I'm just telling you some things that I think will make crocheting easier. If you have been crocheting for a while, you may know all these tips, or you may go, oh my gosh, how did I not know that? Or, oh my gosh, that's the thing that I've been wondering about, but I didn't even think to ask. So I hope you have some of those aha moments, whether it's one or like you're just blown away by all of it. Toward the end, I'll be sharing some links with you so that you can learn a little bit more. So feel free to ask questions in the chat. Erica's going to be keeping an eye on that. Erica and Ilsa will be keeping an eye on that. And from time to time, I might pause and say, okay, let's see what kind of questions we have. Okay, so let's get started. I did have a handout. So I don't know if you saw, there was a downloadable PDF that you can get. So I'm not necessarily going directly from that, but this just has some links that might help you. I also have some yarn fuzz in my mouth. So excuse me for a minute while I spit out my yarn fuzz. Okay, so let's start by talking about yarn weights and hook sizes. And I'm going to talk about those kind of together because they really are, they really are related to each other. So we have a bunch of different yarn weights. And when I say weight, I don't really mean like how much it weighs. Weight is what we say in the US to mean like what's the diameter of the yarn. So you can have everything from lace weight, and I don't know if you can see how thin and fine this is. This is lace weight. This is a lace weight from Barocco that is mohair and silk. And I don't know if you can see, it has kind of a little halo. It has some fuzz to it. It's actually what I've got on, what I'm wearing right now is a lace weight crocheted shawl. But I've also got this lace weight, very, very fine yarn. This happens to be a silk and wool blend. Then you can have fingering weight, which is a little bit heavier. And you can have, let's see, sport weight, which is a little bit heavier, but depending on the yarn, let's hold these up together. This pink one is labeled as fingering weight, and this multicolored one is labeled as sport weight. But do you see, to me, they look like this one might be even lighter weight than this one. So these are general categories. You can't just absolutely say it's one thing or another. You have DK weight. Here is DK weight, which you can see is a little bit heavier, a little bit thicker around. Then you have worsted weight, which most people a lot of crocheters start with worsted weight. So here's a worsted weight acrylic. Here's a worsted weight cotton from Lion Brand, and this is Karen Simply Soft. Some of these I don't even know what they are. This was a Barocco yarn. I don't even know what this pink yarn is. I have a lot of fingering weight. Then you get up into chunky weight, so even heavier, okay? And you can get into super bulky, okay? So like Lion Brand Thick and Quick Bulky. I don't even remember the exact name of it. And then you can get like super ginormous. That's not an actual technical term, but I found this yarn. I'm sorry, it's so dark. Can you see how thick that is? It's really, really thick. So what you want to do is, if your label gives you a number, the Craft Yarn Council some years ago came up with these numbers. So medium number 4 is what this is called worsted weight. So the Craft Yarn Council has a table that you can go to. You can go to craftyarncouncil.com/ oh, it's on your handout, the standard yarn weight system link, that first thing that I put on your handout. And you can see what weight it coincides with. So bulky number 5, they put a number on it. Not all yarns are going to actually give you a number. So it's nice to know some of these other, so here's this Barocco has a 0. It's a lace weight, but not all labels are going to have, this one doesn't have a label on it, but it is called double knitting, DK. So almost all yarns are going to give you some sort of indication of what they say the weight of the yarn is going to be. And then you want to choose your hook size based on your yarn weight and on your gauge. We'll talk about gauge later. So let's look at some of the Prym hooks. I want to show you this really adorable tool bag from Prym. I had this out and my daughter came for a visit. She said, oh, can I have that? Because I'm usually just offering her all kinds of things from my house. And I said, no, you can't have it. I'm keeping this one. So, all right, let's talk about the Prym ergonomic hooks. Thank you, Prym, for sending me all these hooks. Look at the different sizes of hooks that we have. Okay, can you see we have ginormous hooks? That's a technical term. And we have itty bitty hooks. All right, everything from itty bitty to ginormous, which are labeled with numbers or millimeters. So if you look at the Craft Yarn Council, let's see if I can switch cameras here. Hang on just a second while I figure out how to do that. I do know how to do this. I'm going to switch to, let's see if that works. Nope. I get rid of the screen. Oh, come on, go away. There we go. That's close enough. All right. So I'm looking at the standard yarn weight system here from the Craft Yarn Council. And you see it goes from 0 lace weight up to 7 jumbo weight. But again, these are just generalizations. So you can have one that you might call it a fine weight, but they might call it a lightweight or whatever. So this is not set in stone. But as you look at these other names, so you see like worsted weight, Afghan weight, Aran weight is that medium. Those are all different names for the same kind of weight of yarn. It's giving you a recommended hook size in metric. So crochet hooks have different sizing standards, and this says 5.5 to 6.5 millimeter. So what does that mean? What if you're using a hook that doesn't have millimeters? Well, you can either use a gauge, a hook gauge, or you can look at the Craft Yarn Council hooks and needles page. Let's flip over there. And you see that a 5.5 millimeter is considered an I or an I9 in US terms. So as you look at the yarns that you're going to use and you look at the hook size you're going to use, you're going to try to choose one that is going to go from, you know, that will correspond to the yarn weight. Okay, so you need to know that, but that's going to also depend on your gauge, which, as I say, we're going to talk about that later. So for example, with a lace weight yarn, that it's going to tell you to use a small hook. However, with a lace weight yarn, you might want to use a slightly larger hook, as I did here, to get a lacier, open work. Now, these stitches also have chain spaces and so on, but if you look really carefully at the stitches, they're fairly open because there's so much fuzz there. So you don't have to know all of that. You don't have to memorize it, okay, because that's what the Craft Yarn Council is for. But you do want to know that you're going to have a range of sizes that work with a particular hook. The hook size suggested here on this particular yarn is a J through an L, or a 6 through 8 millimeter. That doesn't mean you have to use that. It just means that's what this yarn company thinks you're going to use with this particular yarn. Okay. So when you're talking about hooks and choosing a hook to go with your yarn, I'm going to pull some of these out so we can look more carefully. There are different styles of heads. So the Prym hook has this kind of, I would call it like a modified inline head, where the head is kind of the same height as the shaft. So we have different parts of a crochet hook. So we have the tip or the head, we have the throat, we have the shaft, and then we have either a handle or thumb rest, and different hooks are going to give you different, are going to be laid out a little bit differently. I have a few other hooks here to show you. Like here's a hook that also has a handle and kind of a thumb rest. Here's another one that has a thumb rest. Here's one that has a thumb rest. Here's one that has a thumb rest, but here's one that doesn't have a thumb rest. You see, this is just all shaft. And then, of course, you have Tunisian hooks, which are like knitting needles, but they still have the tip and the throat and then the shaft, except the shaft is very long. We're not really going to deal with Tunisian tips today. So some people really like having a handle or bigger grip. And depending on how you hold your hook, whether you hold it like a pencil, so this is pencil grip, that's what I usually use, or if you use knife grip, so like this, either way is fine. This is particularly good for a knife grip because you don't have to keep your hands like scrunched down on it. You can keep your fingers kind of loose as you drive the hook. Same thing here. It fits nicely kind of in the crook of your thumb here so that you're not having to scrunch your fingers down on it. So another thing you might pay attention to, though, is some people like this style head and other people like the A-line style head where it pokes up a little bit more. So there are different kinds of hooks that will be comfortable for different people, but this is a good all-round hook that kind of works for a lot of people because of the shape of the handle and the shape of the head. Okay. So when we've talked about crochet hooks and styles, we also need to talk about the sizing. I mentioned millimeters. Prym goes from a C hook, which is a 3 millimeter, to a Q hook. I think this is the Q one. Erica can set me straight if it's not. I can't read that with these glasses on, but this is a ginormous one. This is what I would use for that really big dark yarn that I showed you a few minutes ago, where I really need it to be huge. Okay. So let's talk about foundation chains and getting started with a crochet project. So how many of you, and I don't have any way of showing, I don't have any way of seeing your answers, so I guess this isn't going to help much, but like, have you ever done a piece of crochet? Do you see this is my foundation chain? Do you see what's happening here? Do you see that it has grown and that the foundation chain is kind of pulling in here like this? It's not that I am increasing stitches, okay? My edges are straight, but my foundation chain is too tight. It's in like this, and then when I got up to the stitches, it has grown. It's not that the tension from row 1 to row, whatever this is, 5 has changed. My tension is the same. The problem is my foundation chain was too tight. If I pay attention and I don't make my foundation chain too tight, this is a sample I'm going to show you for something else. Can you see how that's not pulling in, how it stayed straight? So what I did here, And I'll admit, I intentionally made this foundation chain tight so it would do this. I did that on purpose. But you can either use a larger hook for your foundation chain, or be intentionally loose when you work that foundation chain. If you notice that your piece is doing this and kind of splaying out like this, and you are keeping the same number of stitches, you need to go back to the beginning and fix that foundation chain. You need to take it out and start over. Please don't do an entire blanket that's going to be beautiful all except for what's going on one edge. Go ahead and take the time to fix it. And okay, those of you who've heard me before are going to know what I'm going to say next. I bet somebody could just jump in and tell me what I'm going to tell you to do before you start a blanket to keep from having a foundation chain that looks like this. If you do a swatch first and do a little practice piece, you can see whether your blanket is going to do that. You're going to practice doing that foundation chain, and you're going to practice doing a little bit of your crocheting to make sure that you have that foundation chain loose enough. I can't tell you how much larger the hook needs to be because that's going to vary with every person. That's why you want to swatch. You'll hear me say swatch time and time again, but doing a little practice piece of a swatch will tell you what size hook you need to use for that foundation chain. But oh my goodness, do not forget to change when you're doing the first row. Okay, I cannot tell you how many times I thought, oh, I'm going to use a bigger hook for the chain, and then I turn back and I start going back and I forgot to change my hook size back down to whatever it was supposed to be. So, oh my goodness, don't forget to do that. I'm telling you to like do what I say, not what I do, because I forget that all the time. Okay. So after a while, you may find that you don't need to worry about being looser or changing your hook size, because eventually with practice, you'll kind of get used to how loose your hook needs to be to have it. Like I didn't do anything here. Like when I did this swatch, I was trying to be intentionally tight when I did this one. But when I was doing this one, I didn't do anything special. I didn't change the hook size. I just did my foundation chain the regular way and I ended up with straight edges. Okay. You can also use something called a foundation stitch, but that's not something I'm going into today because I told you I can't tell you everything I know, and that's going to have to be for another time. Okay, let me grab a drink here, just a sec. The next thing I want to talk about is how not to confuse yarn over and yarn under. Let me move these things out of the way. So when we do, and this is particularly something that happens a lot in single crochet, but it happens other times too. When we're doing a regular single crochet, and by the way, I am using American crochet terminology. I am in the US, so when I say single crochet, I'm doing a US single crochet. There is a difference. If we were in England, I'd be doing, it would be called a double crochet. It'd be doing the same thing. So this is a US single crochet. So here I am going in. I'm going to go in and yarn over, right? Yarn over. And the yarn is going, because I'm right-handed, it's going from the upper right to the lower left. You see how I kind of push back to get that yarn over and pull up a loop. Let me do it again. Yarn over. Okay, I can do it left-handed in a minute and pull through. Let me do it one more time. Go in, yarn over, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through both. Let me show you what some people do, not realizing they're doing it. Go in and do a yarn under. Can you see when I do that yarn under that the yarn is going in the other direction from what I showed you? It's going from the upper left to the lower right. It's going diagonally in this direction. When I finish that single crochet, now I'm going to do a yarn over. I will have twisted a stitch. Let me do it again. I'm going to go in, do a yarn under, pull up a loop, yarn over, and pull through two. Let's take a look at these stitches. This is a regular single crochet. Can you see the two little legs are parallel to each other? They're standing up, their two little legs are parallel, but look what happens when I do a yarn under. Can you see that they're crossing each other? Let me see if that shows up. Can you see that the legs, that this leg on the left is actually crossing the leg on the right? So I have twisted my stitches. So if I'm not intending to twist my stitches, I need to do a regular single crochet with a yarn over. Now, yarn under is used a lot in amigurumi because it makes tighter stitches, but you don't want to do it if you aren't intending to do it. And unfortunately, I've seen a lot of people who learn to crochet on YouTube and they wanted to learn because they wanted to make amigurumi. That's fine. This isn't wrong to do a yarn under, but I want you to know that you're doing it. It's going to give you a different gauge from regular single crochet. It's going to be tighter. And if you're watching a YouTube video and they're telling you this is how you single crochet, that's not a standard single crochet. Okay, that's a yarn under single crochet. So just watch out for that. Now I want to take these out. Can you see, if you look really carefully, can you see how those last three stitches look different? Same thing, this is true in double crochet as well. You always want to do that yarn over, yarn over, yarn over, and so on. Okay, so know the difference between a yarn under and a yarn over. All right, let's talk about stitch markers. I have the same swatch. How many of you have trouble figuring out where the beginning and end of the row is? Like almost every beginner, right? I see Ilse's holding her hands up. Yeah. All right, so here's how I like to use stitch markers. This is single crochet, but I'm going to show you for double crochet as well. All right, notice I happen to already have a marker in this stitch, but let me do this. I'm going to put a single crochet in this last stitch. Now, I know that's the last stitch of my row. So I'm going to put a marker in the top of that stitch. Maybe. Right, do you see how I put it? This loop that is on my hook is not a stitch. This right here is not a stitch. This is a stitch I just finished. So that V at the top of my stitch is a stitch. All right, now I'm going to turn and chain one. And because the chain one doesn't count as a stitch, I'm just going to ignore it. And I'm going to put a stitch right in that one I just marked. Can you see I'm putting it in the same spot where my marker is? Right here. I'm going to take the marker out now. Finish my single crochet and put a marker right back in it. You see that stitch I just finished, that V at the top? I'm going to put a marker right back in there. Okay. Then I'm going to la-di-da-di-da, go all the way across my row, single crochet across, whoops. Can I talk and do this at the same time? Maybe not. All right, I have already left a marker when I did this row. I've left a marker in the first stitch of that row. There it is. Here's this marker saying, hey, put a stitch right here. So I go, okay, I'll put a stitch right here in the top of that stitch that I had marked. Remove my marker and replace it right here in the stitch that I did. Now, if I get interrupted, I'm not going to let myself get interrupted until I've put that marker right back in that stitch. So now if I stop or whatever, I'll know where I am when I come back and my first stitch is marked. But I really need to be able to read my work. What if I don't remember if I've done a chain? You know, I need to do a chain 1 to turn to get my hook up to the level of the next row. Have I done my chain or have I not done my chain? How am I going to figure that out? Well, I'm going to say, well, there's my marker. And that must have been my last stitch that I did. And I know this is not a stitch, so I haven't done the chain. So now I can do my chain and I can say, oh, okay, there's my stitch. That was the last stitch of the row. And there's my chain 1. So now I've done my chain 1. I'm going to turn it, put a stitch in here, right where I had marked it, and move my marker. And I'm just going to do that all the time, which I will admit gets a little tedious. But after you practice for a while, you won't need the markers. You'll start to recognize where the first and last stitches are. Unless you're using a funky yarn, and I will admit that even though I don't usually, like in this yarn, I wouldn't be using markers, but there are times when I have a super fuzzy yarn or dark yarn or a thick and thin yarn, and I do use markers to keep track of where I am, okay? So let's see what that looks like in double crochet. I have another little swatch over here, much narrower swatch. Because the other thing we have trouble with in double crochet is knowing what's a stitch and what isn't a stitch, right? Does that sound familiar to you? What is a turning chain? Does it count as a stitch or does it not count as a stitch? Oh gosh, I don't know. All right. So, I mean, I do know. Wait a minute. I do know the answer to that. I'll share with you. All right, let's start by counting how many stitches I have. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I am counting my double crochet on my chain 3 on my turning chain as a stitch. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. Let me come back around here and do this. And I have marked my last stitch, and there's my first one. I'm going to show you what that looks like. I'm going to use a chain 3 turning chain. 1, 2, 3. You may use a chain 2. You may use some other turning chain. Again, that's a different class. I can talk to you about that later. But all right, now, if this stitch that I just made, that chain 3, if that counts as a double crochet, okay, so I went, woof, all right, woof, I made that a double crochet, okay, because I'm magic and I say that's double crochet. That means that I already have a stitch in this stitch. You see where I marked it? That was my last stitch, but there's the stitch I put into it. Even though I didn't physically put a stitch in here, if I now go in here and put a stitch there, how many stitches do I have? 2, because this counts as a stitch. So I don't want to do that. I want to actually skip that marked stitch. This is going to require a third marker. I'm going to reach over here and I'm going to pick try to find a color that you will be able to see. Let's see if you'll be able to see this yellow one. So I did my chain 1, 2, 3, and I'm going to put a marker in my chain in the top. Okay, in the top. It's not in this loop because that's not a stitch. I'm putting it in the top chain because I'm going to need to find that later. All right, now I'm going to skip this first stitch because I already have a stitch there. And I'm going to put put a stitch in the next stitch. 1, 2, 3. Now, because I did this previously and left a marker in the top of my chain, now I have a marker here going, hey, put a stitch here. That was my turning chain. Can you see when I turn it around, you see how it was the top of my turning chain? I do not want to put that stitch in this hole. That's not where it goes. It goes here where I put that marker. I need to move the marker out of the way. right here. So I'm going into the chain. I've got 2 loops on top of my hook, going into the chain and doing my double crochet. Now I need to replace that marker right here. And then I need to take out this other marker that I don't need anymore. Then I'm going to stop and count my stitches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I still have 5 stitches because I'm counting this double crochet as a stitch. Okay. Now you can also decide not to count the double crochet as a stitch. I'm not going to go into that right now because I think it would be too confusing for you. But I do want to reach down here. Hang on a minute. I forgot to pull out a piece of paper. So let me reach down here because I want to draw that for you. I want to draw for you what we just did. So I'm going to do this the old-fashioned way with paper. So I had 1, 2, 3, 4, and a turning chain. This is the symbol for double crochet. This is the symbol for chain. You're going to learn to read charts whether you like it or not, because charts are awesome when it comes to crochet stitches. All right, so there was my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 stitches. You see them? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then I turned and did a chain 3. I put 1 stitch in each of these stitches and 1 stitch in the top of my turning chain. So I had a marker here, and I have a marker here, and then I just put a marker here. So now when I go back, 1, 2, 3, I'm going to put a marker here. Then I'm going to work in the next 3 stitches, and man, oh man, I'll show you in a second. Those are easy to find. And then I have that marked stitch right here, and I've put a stitch there. So let me do that again for you. I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, put a marker. Where did it go? Put a marker in the top chain, not in the loop that's on my hook, but in the top chain. I already have a stitch here where this marker is. You see that? Can you see this chain 3? I already have a stitch right there. So I'm going to work my first stitch, my first real double crochet into the next one. I work under both loops. 1, 2, 3. And then I've got that marker sitting there showing me right here, going, hey, put a stitch here. So I put a stitch right there in the last stitch, not into the space. That'll just make that hole even bigger. If you want to see me explain a little bit more about how to do this, where I spend a little more time on it, I have a YouTube video about how to double crochet. And you can just look at my YouTube channel. I have a whole playlist of crochet techniques. And I talk about how to do this in single, half double, and double crochet. So you can see how I think about turning chains and so on. And I also have a blog post about where to put the first stitch of a row. So really understanding, like really understanding turning chains is going to be the thing that really helps you with keeping your edges straight. So not just like I'm going to memorize how to do it, but totally understanding what's happening and why you're putting a stitch there or not. Now, if you don't like using a chain 3 turning chain, there are alternatives to that. Again, this is a beginning hacks, and most beginning projects, most beginning patterns are going to use a chain 3 or a chain 2. I have a video about alternate methods of turning chains, so you can use those. I usually use a different method, but often when I'm teaching, when I don't want to go into those details, I don't have time for it today. But you can watch the video and use a different one if you want to. So that's perfectly fine. All right, let's talk about gauge. All right, before everybody just leaves, okay? Like, take a deep breath. Gauge is not scary. Gauge is important. I know everybody just kind of went, ugh. All right, so gauge is nothing but the number of stitches and rows you have over a certain distance. That's it. That's all it is, okay? So if I want to measure my gauge, and again, I don't have time to show you exactly how to do it in all the stitches, but let's say I have a nice swatch like this. Let me move some stuff out of the way. I have a nice swatch like this. This is double crochet, I think. Let me see. Yep. I have a nice swatch, and I'm going to get my ruler out here. Hang on just a second. I didn't remember to get my ruler out. So we're going to have to dig for it. Silly me, I put it under things. Okay, that was not very professional, was it? Too bad. All right, so I'm going to use a ruler, and I'm going to put it down, and I'm going to count across how many stitches I have across 4 inches. So let's see, 1, 2, and I'm counting the post. It's easy to count the post of a stitch. So let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So I would say I have 13 double crochets, and let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8.5, 9 rows. Okay, in this space. Now, if I really want to do a good job, I'm going to measure my stitch gauge in about 3 places. Notice that this swatch is almost 8 inches across. This is a good swatch. You don't want to be measuring your gauge on 2 inches or even just on 4 inches, because that's not very accurate. Because if I measure edge to edge, it's going to be, these stitches are not the same gauge as the ones in the middle, especially if your sides are going in and out. So you want to measure in the middle, but I'm going to probably measure in about 3 spots, and probably 3 spots on my row gauge too, just to make sure that I'm getting, that I know what my gauge is. This is after I blocked it. So you always want to block your piece before you measure your gauge. But what happens if I don't like, this is, I don't know, whatever I just said my gauge was, right? I don't even remember. This was with a size 5.5 millimeter hook. All right, I want to show you something. Same yarn, same stitch pattern with a 4 millimeter hook. You notice anything about that? What do you see here? Can you see how much smaller this piece is? Now, this, and same number of stitches. So it's the same everything, but you see the difference the hook size makes. Here's one done with a 5 millimeter hook. So this is kind of like 1, 2, 3 sizing. Now, if this is 8 inches across and these pieces are so different in size, if I have a blanket, can you imagine what the difference in size is going to be? If it was like a 1/2 inch across, just across 8 inches, it can be 6 inches or more difference between what I wanted and what I got. That is going to affect how much yarn you use. So even if you don't care, and it's definitely going to affect the size. If you're trying to make like a sweater that fits, you need to make sure you're matching the gauge, or you know what your gauge is. If you don't care what size it is, like you say, oh, I don't care what size this blanket is. You do care how much yarn you're going to use. So if you are always running out of yarn, does anybody always run out of yarn compared to what the pattern says? Or I see a couple of heads going like this. So I'm not gonna call you out on it, but do you do a swatch? Do you check your gauge before you do your project? Probably not. okay? So there's lots and lots that I could say about gauge. The main other thing I want to say about it, because I teach a whole class about gauge and I talk about it a lot in my classes because it's so important. But another thing you need to understand is doing a swatch is not just, so when I say do a piece of your crochet first before you start the whole project, that's, yes, it's for gauge, but it's also to find out about the hand or the drape of your fabric. So if I have, this is really hard for me to show on camera, but if I have this piece, I'm holding this with one finger, okay? I have this piece. This is the one that was done with a larger hook. And this is one that was done with a smaller hook. So let's see if I can. I don't know if you can tell that this one is drapier than this one. Like, have you ever had a piece of fabric that you crocheted? Let's say you're making a scarf and it stands up on its own. Like it doesn't even wrap around your neck because it's so stiff. You probably didn't check your gauge if you were following a pattern. That is not a fabric you want. You want, like, this shawl, I want to be, can you see it's drapey and lacy and light, and it's also very warm. I'm going to take it off. I want it to be like this. That's what I want a shawl to be. This would make a terrible market bag because it doesn't have enough structure, right? I don't want the same fabric for a shawl that I do for a placemat, right? So you have to think about, you're creating a fabric. You're not just doing crochet stitches, like each double crochet or whatever. You're creating a fabric. Sewers buy fabric and cut it to make a thing and put it together. As crocheters, we are creating the fabric and the thing at the same time. And so you want those things to go together, and that all has to do with your hook size and your yarn size and all that stuff we talked about at the beginning. So you want to make sure that you are kind of incorporating all that, and that's where doing a swatch, measuring your gauge and stuff will help you learn about that. So I'm really pretty passionate about that. Can you tell? Let me see what else is on my list here. All right, we talked about it. Let's talk about weaving in ends. I'm going to come back to this thing. So I was talking to somebody today, as a matter of fact. This is after I had prepared all this. And she was so frustrated because she made something and it fell apart. And I said, how long were your ends? How did you weave in your ends? And she said, well, I worked over my yarn tails. I left about 2 inches. See my 2 inches? That's not even 2 inches, is it? Ooh, that's 3 inches. Okay, we're going to leave 3 inches. And I've got to find the right hook size here. And she just worked over her yarn tail. So I'm going to take my hook here and I'm going to do a double crochet, and I'm working over my yarn tail. Can you see I'm just catching the yarn tail at the base of the stitch here? So I'm going to do this all the way across. And yay, that was pretty easy. I didn't have to weave anything in. I was just catching my yarn tail underneath. Okay, let me do another couple of stitches here. All right, so there we go. It's all caught. It looks fine, right? Doesn't that look good? I'm going to turn it around. And I want you to keep an eye on this end. So, oh, and then she probably trimmed it, right? So there we go. All right, and now this, let's say this is a blanket or scarf. So I'm going to use it. I'm putting it on. I'm going to use it and whatever. And wait, there's my end. And I'm going to wash it, and it's going to get washed, and it's going to get stretched this way and that way. And can you see it's getting looser here? That can pop right on out. with wear, okay? That is not sufficient. It's not enough to weave in your yarn tail. What you want to do, if you do work under some stitches, so I'm going to leave a longer tail here. I'm going to grab a needle, I think. Grab a yarn needle. You want to weave it in multiple directions. So let's say I'm just going to weave it in. Let's say I worked over the yarn tail here. So yeah, that might be fine, but that's insufficient. Now I want to maybe come down here, maybe go over here, maybe go here, maybe come back in this direction, maybe go up here. And now I can move this around in all sorts of ways, and whichever way I move that fabric, it's got to come out, like it's got to come out of a lot of different directions in order to actually not be secure anymore. But to do that, you have to leave more than 2 inches. You are not saving yourself yarn by leaving a teeny little yarn tail and then not being able to weave it in. I mean, for goodness sakes, this yarn needle that I'm using is 2.5 inches long. If I've left myself a 2-inch yarn tail, I can't even get my needle under stitches very well before, see, I can't, I can't manipulate it. So leave at least a 4 to 6 inch yarn tail. If you are using ginormous yarn, like this ginormous yarn right here, I'm sorry you can't see that. Remember that big ginormous yarn? Leave longer, leave like 8 inches, because you've got to weave in under a certain number of stitches. If you're doing a granny square, you're going to want to try to stay in the same color. So here I have a granny square where maybe I'm going to work under these stitches and under these stitches, but then I'm going to come back in the other direction and maybe up here, something like that. I mean, I don't have a definite rule for it, but at that point, once you've done it in several directions, you can trim it off. Okay. Speaking of granny squares, make sure you know the difference. This is not on the handout. Make sure you know the difference between the right side and the wrong side. It really bothers me when I see granny squares that are like some right side and some wrong side rows. This is the right side of your double crochet. Compare that to the bumpy wrong side. Can you see the difference? This is smooth and this one is bumpy. So you want the smooth, that's the right side, the bumpy is the wrong side. Now, some people switch, they turn at the end of every round for granny squares, and then you're going to have a right side, wrong side, right side, wrong side on both sides. But I really prefer the all right side granny square rounds. Okay. All right, let's see. We have 10 minutes left. Let's talk about reading crochet patterns and charts. Let me stop for just a minute and get a drink and let Erica tell me if there are any questions I need to answer while I'm getting my drink.
We had a couple of questions about blocking and how do you start a magic ring. So I'm not sure if there's anything we can do within 10 minutes.
So I do have a blog post about blocking. I have information about magic ring. I have several books that talk about how to do those things. So if you follow me on social media or send me an email at edie@edieekman.com, I can point you to some of those resources. I don't have them handy right here. Okay, let me just a second find one more thing that I wanted to share with you. And that would be a pattern. So we'll just take a look at a written pattern, and I want you to think about patterns as being recipes, okay? So it's not like, don't freak out when you see a written pattern, okay? Because it's like a recipe. So let me switch cameras here again. Sorry. All right. So here I have a pattern for easy little baskets. And this is actually, these 3 baskets are, I have more information in a PDF, but we're just going to look at the website, the free part of it. So it tells you a well-written pattern is going to have certain things in common. If you are trying to follow a pattern and you are really having trouble with it, it's not always you, because not all patterns have all the pieces that they need to be easy to follow. So here I'm in this pattern, I'm giving you the yarn weight. I'm telling you about the medium weight yarn. I'm telling you about the specific yarn that I used, which I think they don't even make anymore, but you could use any medium weight yarn. I'm giving you finished dimensions. You always want to know what the dimensions are, and you want to know how much yarn you want to use. You also want to know what hook size the designer used. It drives me absolutely bananas to see patterns where they say, use medium weight yarn, chain 43. It's like, no, I don't, you have to tell me what size hook you used and what size you intend this to be and what your gauge was. You can't tell me, you and I are going to use different size hooks, maybe, to get the same gauge. So it's not that an H 5mm hook with this yarn will always give this gauge, because people work at different tightnesses, right? So you may have to go up or down a hook or two to get the same gauge. So you need to have that information. Here, the gauge is given with 2 different size hooks. It points out, noted in the pattern notes, that it's using American crochet terminology. You always want to know whether you're using US or UK terminology. That's another hint that somebody's paying attention to details, because you want your designer to be paying attention to details. If they're not paying attention to details, then it might be harder to follow. So I'm going to go on through. It has a list of abbreviations and so on. So as you look at this is just the instructions to the round basket. Don't freak out and try to understand all of it at once. Just go through and do what it says with main color. How do I know it's MC? Because it tells me in the abbreviations that MC is main color. Chain 4, join with the slip stitch to form a ring. Just do what it says step by step. So you put 6 single crochets in the ring and you end up with 6 single crochets. That's the stitch count at the end of the round. Place a marker in the first stitch to indicate the beginning of the round and move marker up as you work each round. Well, if you know how to do that, you can follow those instructions. If you don't know how to do it, I have videos about how to do those sorts of things too. Round 2, 2 single crochets in the first stitch, 2 single crochets in each stitch around. Your stitch count at the end of that round is 12 single crochets. So having the stitch count at the end of the round is always helpful, especially when you're increasing or decreasing. So just do each step as you come to it. Don't try to understand all of it. It can be hard to understand if you don't have it in your hand, but if you have it in your hand, that's really helpful to be able to tell what's going on, okay? So let me flip back to my face here if I can figure out how to do that. And then with charts, it's helpful to be able to see what's going on, just like when I showed you with the double crochet. If you have a chart that is also has the written out instructions. That can be super helpful to learn how to read both. I'm going to flip to a different screen here and show you a book. This is one of my books where I have this particular one is Beyond the Square Crochet Motifs, where I have the written instructions, but also the charted instructions. So you can kind of go back and forth between these two to understand, and of course you have the picture, to understand what's going on. So you just read from spot to from comma to comma, if you will. So in this case, right here, I don't know how well you can see this, but 3 treble in ring, chain 6, repeat from asterisk 2 more times. Let's talk about repeat from 2 more times. You can't repeat something that you haven't done before. So if I say repeat it 2 more times, you're doing it 3 times. Does that make sense? You can't repeat it unless you've done it. So repeating it 2 times means you do it, and then you do it again, and then you do it again. Okay. So that repeat from can be confusing. And also a lot of times I see designers who don't understand it. And so they may say, repeat from asterisk a total of 4 times. That doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. It's meaningless because you want me to do it a total of 4 times, or if you want me to repeat it a total of 4 times, then you're telling me to do it 5 times. So when I see a pattern that's written like that, I'm like, ooh, this one's going to be challenging to understand because the person who wrote it is not kind of following conventional pattern writing standards, or maybe doesn't understand about that, or whatever. So anyway, we're about out of time. This was really fast. I had a lot of things to say, and I didn't have a lot of chance to answer. I'm looking at some of the questions. I have a lot of answers in blog posts. I have, oops, I forgot to bring this. I have a book called the Crochet Answer Book, which will answer a lot of those questions as well. You can find me on social media at Edie Eckman. I'm Edie Eckman everywhere. I'm at edieeckman.com. I'm on YouTube as Edie Eckman. Like, I am not trying to hide. You can find me. I want to thank Prym and Michaels, but especially Prym for sponsoring this. And I encourage you to check out their awesome hooks, which you can find at Michaels. I actually went to Michaels the other day and checked to make sure that they had a bunch of Prym hooks in stock. So if anybody hears from my local Michaels in Waynesboro, you can find them at my local Michaels. And I hope you will subscribe to my newsletter, because if you visit my website, or I think Ilse will put it in the chat, I'd be happy to teach you what you need to know, because I really love crochet. I love knitting, and I have classes all the time. I do a lot of virtual instruction. So thank you everybody for coming. And hey, what a great way to kick off I Love Yarn Day week, right? So we can celebrate I Love Yarn Day all the time. Thank you.